this is the new big thing that's happened. I just don't know anything about it.
The FBI just accidentally released 11,000 Jeffrey Epstein files that...
Oops. Oh, did you hit enter? Oh.
They hadn't publicly put out yet, but we got access to them. And at the end of this video, I'm going to show you how to access them. Here's what that looks like. It's volume
I want to see how to
8
do it myself.
of the files, but you can see right now that they've only released 7 data sets. And so myself, the guys at Jmail, and the guys at DropSite, we've been investigating this. I've partnered with them to kind of look at some of these files. And they got access to volume 8 early. You would just type it in the URL. It wasn't like indexable on search, but you could just type in the specific URL and it would just come up. You could download the entire zip file, and that's what we did. We've been looking through it. I want to go over some of it because I believe some of what we've seen directly contradicts the FBI's earlier statement that, oh, there's no...
well, everything that they release contradicts what they previously said. This has been a really common factor for them for a while now. This isn't anything new or different or unique. This is the way it's been for a bit. Sure.
Evidence, or we did not uncover evidence that could predicate an investigation against uncharged third parties. That's what they told us.
They did.
Right? They said, we've already looked through the files. You don't need to see the files back in July. Of course, all the pressure has made them now start releasing some of this stuff. And we believe that this was slated for release, but remember, they weren't going to release all the files yet. They had to hold some back. Well, we believe that these 11,000 files are part of what they held back, because clearly they aren't out. And clearly,
well, I mean, they're obviously going to be part of what didn't get released. I mean, like they said, I mean, the thing is that I think it was either Ro Connor or Thomas Massey, one of the two guys that made the bill for having all this stuff come out and like go public. They said that there were 300 gigabytes of, I think that was the number, 300 gigabytes of data about Epstein. So, I mean, I would assume that the vast majority of that is like, is video files, right? Because that's how files like that get really big, is there's like videos and things similar to that. But what I'm saying, Trump could have not signed it. Yeah, I mean, he could have not signed it, but then it would have happened anyway, right? I mean, he could have vetoed it or something else. But they could have gotten it passed and done it probably without Trump one way or another. And it's very obvious also that, you know, really, he was in a position that he couldn't really get out of. Like, he had already lost the fight. And reason why, I mean, if Trump had never brought up the Epstein files at the beginning of his campaign, he had never, positioned people in the cabinet that are like very big advocates for releasing the Epstein files. If he had never done any of that, I don't think anybody would be as angry as they are now. I think the reason why a lot of people are angry is because of the bait and switch. Like, that's the reason why, for example, like Biden didn't release these files for 4 years. He didn't release them for 4 years, but nobody's really getting mad at Biden for that. And I think one of the reasons why is because Biden never really said that he would. So he never really talked about it. It wasn't really anything he was involved with. So there's never really any expectation that people had that Biden was going to release these files to begin with. So Kamala explained why they didn't. Kamala gave a reason why they didn't. And she also is speaking from her perspective. What would Joe Biden say? Oh, I don't know, right? It's hard to say. So I wouldn't listen to anything that she's saying. And like, also the vice president doesn't really make decisions anyway, right? And so, yeah, Kamala's dumb. Yeah, I don't, like, would you really buy that as an actual reason? I certainly wouldn't buy that as an actual reason. So, yeah, they were in an active investigation until December 2024. I mean, again, but the active investigation was decided on by them. They decided to do that. They didn't expedite the investigation. They let it go on that long, and that's the reason why. I mean, do you really think that Biden would have released the Epstein files? I don't think so. I think there's a guarantee that he wouldn't have. And also the investigation started under him. So, no, I don't think any of that is true. I think it's all bullshit. So, yeah, anyway, let me go back and watch the rest of it.
We're ready, because a lot of these are redacted. I mean, already you can see we found several files that were, once again, over 100 pages of redacted information. So it was all ready to be released. It's unclear why it wasn't. But let me caveat before we get into the material that this is a breaking story, and as such, I'm sure there's going to be some...
It's evolving, right? I mean, things are changing. Now they're explaining it, etc. No, we're going to go onto the file site after I watch this video, and I'm going to try and do the copy paste thing myself, because I don't know whether this is true or not, but I want to see if it's true. I want to see it for myself.
pieces of information that we are interpreting or trying to interpret live. And because of that, I want to warn you to withhold your judgment on some of this stuff until we get more evidence. I'm sure
I think that any of these pieces of information, even if somebody says that another person did something, I think it's grounds for evidence, but it's not grounds for proof. It's the same thing I said with Michael Jackson or like David Blaine being in these different photos, is that really, I mean, Epstein was around everybody. He was doing stuff with everyone. So if you just go and say, okay, well, anybody who's in these files is automatically guilty, I think you're painting with such a large brush that you're obviously going to have a lot of collateral damage. I would wait and see what happens.
President's going to be asked about some of this stuff. I'm sure Todd Blanche, Pam Bondi, they're going to get asked about this because it is extremely damning, I think, what we see in some of this. Specifically, I want to draw your attention immediately to the 10 co-conspirators that are mentioned in some of these emails in 2019. Now, this is just alarming stuff because prior to this, remember that all we really had was Jeffrey Epstein and Ghislaine Maxwell. That's the only people who have ever faced any charges at all. Ghislaine Maxwell, the only one who actually faced consequences, right? But in 2019, apparently there were 10 co-conspirators. Now, the people who were sending...
I don't think that's accurate either. I think it's way more than 10. You don't have 1,200 victims with 12 people. There's no way. That's like 1 to 100. I mean, maybe, right? But like, I find that to be very unlikely.
This to and from have been blacked out, but at the bottom we see that this is the violent crime section, crimes against human trafficking unit. And we can see that of the 10 co-conspirators, 3 have been located in Florida, served grand jury subpoenas, 1 in Boston, 1 in New York City, 1 in Connecticut were served. 4 out of the 10 are outstanding with attempts having been made. What is a wealthy businessman in Ohio? A lead is being sent to CV, and the remaining 3 are currently out of pocket. This is stunning stuff. Previously, we did not know how many co-conspirators were suspected of, or I'm not aware of anything like that. And additionally, some of the details on this are revealed later because we see this subject line. It says co-conspirators at the top. And it says, blank does not need to head out. We made contact with blank last night in New York City. Blank last night in New York. Contact was made with blank, blank, and blank. By the way, I love how these potential co-conspirators...
Yeah, and also that's what's so weird about this is like, so this person, why is it that these names are even redacted at all? It's confirmed this person live in NY, and it's, what is this? We don't have a good address for this person. Attempts to Maxwell will be approached in Florida. Like, these names shouldn't be redacted because in the law, it said the only thing to be redacted were the victims and minors. And so, well, actually, it didn't in the law. That's even what the Department of Justice said, is that they said that the only thing that they're going to redact are the victims' names and minors, and everybody else's name was going to be published. So what the hell is going on here?
I love how these potential co-conspirators are people who are being blacked out. Like, why? I thought the whole point of this was you couldn't redact people for personal information reasons or for public embarrassment. You could only redact on the basis of it being a victim. And I'm not sure how these people could possibly be victims here.
Epstein Files Transparency Act prohibits redactions, quote, on the basis of embarrassment, reputational harm, or political sensitivity.
So it does prohibit it. Okay, so then if it's being censored just because of some random reason, because, oh, it might make somebody look bad, it's literally against the law to do that. If the redactions protect CSAM victims, who the fuck is trying to unredact it? Yeah, nobody's trying to unredact people that are victims. Like, nobody wants to unredact victims' names. This is like a fake defense technique that some, like random morons are inventing. Nobody actually wants to do that.
Has anything been redacted on that basis?
Absolutely, positively not.
But anyways, you can see that it says attempts were made to blank and Brunel. That's Jean-Luc Brunel, the famous who's now dead. Blank is confirmed to live in New York, was away for the holiday weekend. We did not have a good address, but an attempt was made in New York. Attempts are made to Maxwell today. Blank, you get it. Like, it's all the people they suspected this whole time are redacted, of course. And then they say, I do not know about Ohio contacting Wexner. Now, that's a reference to Les Wexner, the former CEO of Victoria's Secret. This
Yeah.
is huge. We've long suspected that he was, of course, one of the co-conspirators. And obviously, the fact the FBI suspected it isn't a 100%
I don't know if that guy's still
confirmation,
alive or not.
But clearly, they were serving grand jury subpoenas. I mean, that must be who they're talking about, one wealthy businessman in Ohio, because later it's confirmed by this whole idea of Ohio contacting Wexner. And you can see at the bottom, this is from the FBI New York. When you get a chance, give me an update on the status of the 10 co-conspirators. This is really bad to know.
It's insane. Like, this is, I'm actually surprised. The only thing that I'm really surprised about by this is the information actually came out. Is that I assumed that even this much information would be censored, suppressed, redacted, controlled, removed, or something, right? There would be some sort of way that it didn't happen. This is tax-funded spirit cooking of satanic elites. Yeah, I don't know. Just tried it. The copy-paste shit doesn't work. Well, I don't know whether it does or not. I mean, I'll have to go and look at it, try it myself, because, again, I mean, people are going to say something, and then if it doesn't work, they're going to say they changed it. Like, it's just really impossible to know.
That we knew as early as 2019 the right people to target, and yet our FBI, who's had evidence of this the entire time, or leads on it, has declined to prosecute, right?
Yeah.
Because this is what the FBI now tells us. Oh, don't bother. Don't worry about it. That's what they wanted us to believe in July. Fast forward to December, we find out there's 10 guys that they knew about since like 6 years ago.
And they didn't do anything about it. That's the thing, too. That's what's crazy is that they never acted on this. They never arrested these people. They probably didn't even do an investigation into it. Like, the fact that this happened, I mean, at the end of the day, I think somebody has to be held accountable for this. And that's the main concern that I have with this whole situation is that, like, there really has to be like severe personal consequences for the people that were making these decisions. That's the main thing that I'm concerned about and I'm worried about, is that these people will get called out, they'll get embarrassed, but there's never going to be a point where they're actually held accountable for the things that they did. And that, to me, is a huge fucking problem. That is a massive fucking problem. So yeah, Biden should be held accountable. Well, I mean, I think that you should look at the people, like, let's start with like the easy ones, right? Let's look at the people inside of the department that was supposed to be investigating this that chose to make a decision not to do that. Those are the ones that you can look at and say immediately, those guys are wrong.
It's insane.
That's
Even
what
over
I'd say.
here, we see that in one of the lawsuits, I believe this is with Maxwell, the government actually wanted to refer to people at trial as co-conspirators of the defendant,
Why
aka
didn't
Maxwell, for the purposes of a rule. And then they say Jeffrey Epstein, and then there are two names listed there who are going to be listed as co-conspirators.
Yep.
Again, who are those people? We were told that the only co-conspirator now is Maxwell, and if you don't believe that, you're crazy, you're a conspiracy theorist. But back in 2020, this was a idea not just promulgated by wackos, it was promulgated by who? The FBI themselves, the Department of Justice. Look at this. Co-conspirator question transcript. This is from USA NYS. They say, question, when Jeffrey Epstein died, a lot of people asked, who's next? Is the government going to hold people who are accused of helping him recruit these girls? Are they going to hold them accountable? And then the answer is, well,
exactly. Like, I mean, that's the main thing. Is the government going to hold people accountable? So they're not even doing anything about this. They're just letting it happen. I would love for these people to be held accountable, but when the only evidence against them is a note labeling them as co-conspirators, it's kind of tough. Well, the thing is that that's what's released right now. That's what we know about for sure. Imagine what we don't know about.
Note that the original charges against Jeffrey Epstein contained a conspiracy charge. And
keep in mind, all this stuff is being released piecemeal right now. So it's going to take a long time, but eventually you're going to have this, you're going to have it come out.
Alleged that there were conspirators involved. Jeffrey Epstein couldn't have done what he did without the assistance of others. And I can assure you that our investigation is moving forward, except I guess not. Against everyone except for Ghislaine Maxwell, it got killed. Like, Ghislaine Maxwell was the only one who faced justice, right? Except then she got moved to Club Fed, to this nice prison, right? And by the way, that a whole interesting interview we saw happen with Todd Blanche, which is Trump's former...
Yeah, they were supposed to interview her and go through everything with her, but then for some reason, that never really got explained. There was nothing really to that, and it just kind of got ignored. I feel like after that happened, nobody talked about it again. Like, that was the end of it. It was over. She's in retirement. I mean, again, I have no problem giving her a better quality of life if that's going to lead to convictions for more types of criminals, right? It's just a matter of the greater good. But at the same time, right now, she's just living it high on the hog compared to where she should be, which is fucking solitary confinement. And nobody's in jail. So let me get this straight. So we have somebody who is like a prolific human trafficker, like one of the biggest in the world, at least in terms of like the people that she's trafficking to. She's doing all of this, and then nothing ever happens to her. There's never any accountability for it at all. And then even beyond that, she gets moved to a lower security prison, and that's it. They don't label people, anyone as co-conspirator on an official document unless there's reasonable evidence. Well, I don't know if there is or not.
Defense lawyer. So he got grilled on Meet the Press about his relationship. Like, why did Ghislaine Maxwell go to this nicer prison immediately afterwards?
Exactly.
And while he declines to comment on it, he says something very interesting.
Why was she moved just days after you interviewed her, Mr. Blanche?
So that's a Bureau of Prison Security issue that I will not talk about.
Did you have
I thought the Bureau of Prison Security decided that she shouldn't be moved. Because I remember whenever they were choosing to move her, the Bureau, like all of the prisons that were deciding whether this person should be moved, they said, no, don't move this person. But then I think it got overruled by Trump. So wait, what are we even talking about?
Anything to do with it?
Sounds like some bullshit to me.
Anything to do with it?
Let me finish. First of all, I am responsible for the Bureau of Prisons. So every decision that they make...
It's actually so crazy how big of a massive fucking fuck up this is. It is crazy how big of a fuck up this is. Because, again, the problem is that this has hamstrung all of the other initiatives that I think Trump has done, at least online, and especially with like a lot of like his more like stronger supporters, that it's basically sabotaged all of it. It's sabotaged all of these different issues, and it's made him look terrible. And really, for what? They fucked up bad. No, it hasn't. It absolutely has. 100%. Like these are the biggest stories on the internet. People are talking about this like crazy. And yes, you're right that this is not a major issue in the average eyes of an average American. They probably don't really care a whole lot about this. But to say that all of the people on the internet and all of this stuff doesn't matter at all, if this stuff didn't matter at all, then why are all these companies spending billions of dollars to change people's opinions on the internet? If it didn't matter, they wouldn't be spending the money to do it. So the fact is that, yes, it obviously matters. It obviously makes a difference. And if it didn't, they wouldn't be paying for it. So the truth is that, yes, I do think that that's clearly what's happening here. It is. It's clear what's happening. And I think also it's massively damaged Trump's credibility, and it's sabotaged a lot of his other efforts that I think are relatively good. Things like deportations, things like, for example, getting rid of DEI, stopping drugs from coming into the country, the border, stuff like this. These are good things. But having this issue here, it just sabotages everything. It shuts everything down. And it's insane what happened, man. It really is. Watch midterms, this issue will be brought up. It will be brought up. And the thing is that, how can you publicly say you support Trump when he's accused of being buddy-buddy with a trafficker? Well, I think that there's a lot of people that were inside of the Democratic Party that were like fans of him too, right? And friends with him too. Sorry, I'm like, as I said, I have really bad fucking brain fog today, I guess. But anyway, my point is that, yeah, I mean, this is not it's not a party line issue. This is something that it seems like almost everybody was involved with, right? So, yeah, why do you go straight to Democrats? Well, the reason why is because people are viewing it as like an oppositional thing, right? Whereas you have Democrats that are still okay with and in favor of people that were also in these files and also implicated in things. So until I hear a universal condemnation for that, then I'm not really going to take it that seriously. That's the reason why. It's pretty simple.
Lands on my desk to the extent it needs to. But just let me talk about the security issue. Yeah. At the time that I met Miss Maxwell, there was a tremendous amount of scrutiny and publicity towards her, and the institution she was in, she was suffering numerous threats against her life. So the BOP is not only responsible for putting people in jail and making sure they stay in jail, but also for their safety.
All right, so he's like, yeah. That's crazy. No, I'm not going to talk about that, but every decision lands on my desk. I mean, eventually he goes on to say that, oh, she was in so much danger. We were worried about her safety as a prisoner. I just got to say, there's a lot of concern about Ghislaine Maxwell all of a sudden.
I think that there should be a lot of concern, especially after after fucking Jeffrey Epstein killed himself, right? I mean, they should care a lot about the way she looks. Yeah, absolutely, of course.
And I don't know where that came from. There's not a lot of concern about these conspirators that I guess we've swept under the rug, that we don't care about anymore since 2019. I guess we knew about them and didn't care. And what's even more concerning is our president also seems concerned with the wrong people. Like, while Todd Blanche is concerned about Ghislaine Maxwell's safety and well-being, you've got Trump concerned about the people who are going to be unfairly implicated in the Jeffrey Epstein files, rather than worrying about...
I think it's fair to be concerned about that, and I think it's okay to come out and say that some of the people in these photos are not any sort of wrongdoers or bad actors or anything like that. I think that's definitely true, for sure. But just because you say that, that doesn't necessarily mean that, I don't know, like that... I forgot, honestly forgot
how to catch the people that we obviously let go through the cracks.
The victims were protesting that too many of them were redacted.
I know there are a lot of people that are angry about all of the pictures of other people, but I think it's terrible. Look, I like Bill Clinton. I've always gotten along with Bill Clinton. I've been nice to him. He's been nice to me. We've always gotten along. Respect him. I hate to see photos come out of him, but this is what the Democrats, mostly Democrats, and a couple of bad Republicans are asking.
Everybody wanted this, not just Democrats.
So they're giving their photos of me too. Everybody was friendly with this guy. I think it's a terrible thing. I think Bill Clinton's a big boy. He can handle it. But you probably have pictures being exposed of other people that innocently met Jeffrey Epstein years ago, many years ago.
Now, I'll be honest, he gets off track from here, but the point he was making is that those poor, innocent, bankers who were meeting with Epstein, the poor lawyers who were meeting with Epstein, like all of Epstein's friends are just caught up in this unfortunate thing. And it's just such a reversal of what previously the DOJ and FBI believed. In fact, they believed it so much that they got a federal search warrant
That's a lot.
for the SDNY, and they got it. And part of the seizable data, part of the stuff that they
got a 15-minute response. Yeah, no, it was great that Trump responded to it, right? And he explained at least some of it. Like, I was actually expecting him to just not talk about it at all, right? Or refuse to answer questions about it. So it was good that he at least said something about it, but I mean, really, it's extremely condemning.
Demanded them to seize as part of the search warrant, which, by the way, I think you need some kind of like standard of evidence for. I'm not a lawyer. You guys can chime in. But you can't just get a search warrant without some kind of evidence that you believe there's a crime that's been committed. And part of it says evidence concerning the identity or location of co-conspirators of Jeffrey Epstein, including blank and Ghislaine Maxwell. So again, who is blank? Well, they keep redacting the names of these co-conspirators uncharged.
At a certain point, this needs, the people that made this decision need to be held legally liable. They have to be held liable. And whoever told them to make the decision also needs to be held liable, or that person needs to be held liable. Somebody's head has to roll. That's my point, right? One way or another, somebody has to get fucked for this, right? That's it. And Trump won't. I don't know who it is. I'm not sure who it is, but they need to investigate it and figure it out, right? That's what it is. Clearly, Blank is referring to Larry Summer. Yeah, exactly. Somebody needs to get arrested for this because, again, or charged or something. And the reason why is because what they did is against the law. The law said that they implemented that you could not redact names unless the person was a victim. So if they're redacting the names and the person wasn't a victim, then they broke the law. They knew what the law was. They made the decision knowing that. And I think that they intentionally directed people to make these redactions. I don't think that this happened randomly. I think that it was done on purpose. Every single censor is explicit permission for everyone to fill in the blanks, in my opinion. Well, and you're right about that, is that every single blank is a point where people that don't trust the government will find another place to not trust the government. And so really, I don't think that they've realized how much damage this has done to their credibility. And I think this is just in general. It's not like just with one thing, but it's like if you can't even manage to like, release these files and put these files out there, then how can anybody expect you to do anything else, right? Like what else were you lying about? And that's the way I think any rational person would think, right? Is that if one person's lying to you about one thing, then you can also assume they're lying about a bunch of other stuff too that you don't even know. Can we train AI with all the Epstein files? I don't know. The internet is loud but overrepresented, loud minority. Most people, as you said, care more about groceries and still think Trump is the best option for cheap groceries for the next 3 years. Independents like yourself, the Bernie bros, may say they're mad, but he's still retaining support from the election day. I think that it's undeniable that, this is, however you want to say, saying it's not that bad is still bad. Really, it's still bad. So this idea that it's a cope, really, because why is it that we're even having this conversation? And really ask yourself that question. Why are you out here defending this when the truth is that this should have never happened? This should have never happened. Everybody knows this should have never happened. So if you're out here defending this and saying that, oh, well, it's not that big of a deal, it's not going to affect average voters, even if you're right, think about the position that he put you in to have to come up with these rationalizations for why it's not a big deal. Really, think about that. I think that's very annoying. Trump support's in the gutter. Look at the recent numbers. I don't know. I mean, the numbers that says it's up, it's down, it's impossible to know. I really think it is. It's impossible to know.
Remember, and now they're saying we have no evidence to charge anybody. Clearly, they had evidence for a search warrant, and it's just completely ridiculous that some of this stuff is redacted and that we're viewing the rich and powerful people who are mentioned as the victims here. Now, that's all I want to talk about for now. Remember, this is a developing story, so there's, I'm sure, going to be more evidence that comes out. I will try to keep you updated. I'm probably going to cover more of this stuff in the future because there's so much here. But I had to get this out while it was basically not public yet. I mean, I think it's eventually going to be public. When, we don't know. But you can access all
not trying to downplay, but what if all the unexplained redactions are names of people who are not U.S. citizens? Why would I give a fuck about that? Just publish it anyway, then. Yeah, so they shouldn't publish the name because they're not a citizen? Who cares?
Of it at Gmail.
Yeah, I don't give a shit.
I'll leave a link in the description.
Why would anybody care about that?
They have a special, Drive section. The original pitch was it's like email, but you're logged in as Jeffrey Epstein. Now they've made it like the entire Google account, so you can log into his Drive folder and all that kind of stuff. It's fun. It's a great UI, but more importantly, it makes it all very searchable, and you can look at it. I think you'll all really enjoy it. I also wanted to give a special shout out to the Drop Site team. And finally, we just uploaded on CoffeeZilla. I don't like to upload the same day on both channels because it kind of cannibalizes views. This is such a breaking story that I decided to break my rule. But if you could go, please give that a watch. It's a really great story that we spent a lot of time on. And I'd appreciate it if you check that out as well.
Industry?
I'll leave that link
That's
down below.
That's a pretty small industry,
too. And thank you. I'm going to go get some sleep.
Oh, my fucking God. I really don't even know what to say about this. It's so colossally embarrassing. It seems to me like the people that are in charge of the U.S. Department of Justice are morons. They're morons, straight up. Every single time that they've released something, there's been something wrong with it. It's the redactions have been bad, really. I mean, it's not a competence issue. They're hiding stuff. Here's what I think. I think that they're both hiding stuff and they're incompetent. I think that they're so incompetent that they get caught trying to hide things, and they're trying to hide so many things. It looks like incompetence too. Has it ever occurred to you, isn't it weird how the federal government, every single aspect of the government, besides a handful of first responders, FBI guys, and police officers, they just don't do anything? Does that ever strike you as odd that everywhere in the government, nothing happens? Because to me, I feel like that's kind of a big deal, right? Like, what the fuck? And so disorganized and chaotic. Yeah. Why is it that, for example, the food stamps department, Social Security, the Department of Justice, the court systems, the DMV, the IRS, the fucking, like, I'm trying to think, like, those are all the ones I can think of right off the top of my head, right? Any other processing thing. Why is it that every single one of them is bad? And I'll tell you the reason why. The reason why is because they're mismanaged. That's the reason. It's straight up. It's actually that simple. And how do I know that? Because I went there. I've worked there. I've seen it. So here's how it works. Everybody has a list of basically deliverable like action items and like quantitative analysis metrics. So like, for example, it's like you have to process X amount of documents in this amount of time, right? Or you have to, deal with this many calls and this many times, or you have to do, this many, like forms at this much time. So this entire, every problem in the federal government comes down to two separate issues. You can't remove the people that are there and they're not doing a good job. And also you have a system, this is the bigger thing, is that you have a system that encourages people to do a bad job. That's fundamentally what the problem is at the government. And let me explain why. Whenever you create a gamification of any sort of business system or any sort of process of a job, when you gamify a job, people stop doing their job and they start playing the game because they don't want to get fired. And if the game is what determines if they keep their job or not, well then, yeah, that's obviously what's going to happen. So the government hires based on a numbers game. 10% of people do 90% of the work. Yeah, but like if you had 20% of the people, then you'd have almost 200 times the work, right? And so that's it. My boss uses the term actionable items. She worked for the government. Actionable items is really common. A lot of people use that term. Like, it's really not that big of a surprise. But anyway, so my point is that that's the reason why the federal government is garbage. That's the reason why. It's because it's mismanaged, and the people that are doing process analysis for the federal government do it completely devoid of any sort of insight into the actual job that these people are doing. And like, in my opinion, if you just lowered those standards by like 30 to 40%, and then you just hired people that had higher accuracy and better rates of, like being more certain and not doing things wrong, the federal government would work a million times better. Because the problem is that right now they process things very quickly. But the problem is that if you're processing something really quickly, there's also a very high rate of error. So what happens is that, like, let's say this is what would happen at the IRS, right? So you had like 3 different jobs, right? And I'll go ahead and I'll kind of explain how the IRS worked, right? So basically, you have the mail, and then you have the packaging, and then you have the sorting, and then you have the batching, right? So what happens is that when something goes wrong at batching, it goes back to packaging. So then packaging, you have to redo this entire process again. So the problem is usually not that your document or something like that happened and it was like problematic or something like that. Sorry, my brain is, sometimes I can't even string together a sentence, and I apologize. I don't know why, but, there are just some days I'm on, some days I'm not on, right? And I'm a little bit fucking fried. But anyway, so brain rot, yes, I'm tired. Basically I'm tired, right? That's really all it comes down to. I'm tired. And so anyway, so what happens is that basically you have this system where people end up repeating the same task like 1.5 times on average because a mistake happens. And mistakes happen because mistakes aren't punished as much as low performance and low the quantitative performance is punished, right? And so that's really it. And so too much sugar plus brain rot? Yes, maybe, right? And so, yeah, don't forget it's paramount to staple dollars to the form, right? Yes, right in the middle of it. And so this is the reason why the government is really slow and it's badly managed. It's because people have to repeat tasks because everybody else makes mistakes. And a lot of people that are working there are pretty much guaranteed a job. They never get fired. And because people are held to the lowest standard and all they have to do is meet this arbitrary number, you have a bunch of bad stuff come out. And I bet, honestly, I really mean this, guys. I bet this is what happened with the Epstein files. I do. I bet they probably added in some metric, some sort of bullshit, and the people that were going through this did not really care. They were not actually competent. And because of that, the entire thing fell apart. The federal government's totally fucking mismanaged. It's completely mismanaged. It's because they have to meet these arbitrary quantitative metrics. And because of that, everything in the government is fucked up. It's just that simple. I could go and use big words and explain it, but that's fundamentally what's going on here, right?